Hey guys, tonight we're heading way back to the ancient streets of Rome, where the air smells faintly of olive oil, sewage, and ambition. You're wearing sandals that don't quite fit your tunic itches, and the sun has just slipped behind the red brick skyline. The torches are lit. The night has begun. Welcome to your new life as an everyday Roman. But fair warning, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is over there. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive by sea, standing stiffly aboard a creaking merchant ship that smells like spoiled fish and regret. The port is Ostia, and the first thing that hits you is the noise: shouting, dock workers, bickering, shopkeepers, and somewhere a donkey that clearly doesn't want to be here either. You elbow your way off the plank, clutching a satchel full of nothing useful, and step into Roman territory. Welcome. Rome itself, some miles inland, is a vast sprawl of stone ambition and loosely organized chaos. You travel inland along the Via Ostiensis, the road pitted and lively passing grave markers that line the roadside. They're surprisingly cheerful. Some even include poetic little jingles like, "I was not, I was, I am not, I care not." Cheerful stuff. But then, this is a world where death isn't hidden. It's carved in marble and waved at passers-by. By the time you get to the city gates, it's dusk, and the walls of Rome loom like something out of a fever dream. You cross under the archway into a city of nearly 1 million souls. The ground is uneven, the air thick with smoke from cook fires, incense from temples, and unmistakably the perfume of open sewage. The Cloaca Maxima, Rome's great sewer, hums below your feet. But don't let the name fool you. It's not exactly doing the Lord's work down there. As a newcomer, you attract attention. Your accent, your stride, your complete inability to avoid stepping in something unpleasant. Rome is built vertically insulae, or apartment blocks rise several stories high, dangerously top-heavy, and prone to fire or collapse. If you're not careful, a chamber pot might rain down from above. And by not careful, I mean existing outdoors. You're lucky to have a corner to sleep in, maybe a shared room on the 3rd floor of a tenement where the ceiling leaks and the neighbors argue in languages you don't quite recognize. The city's full of immigrants from Syria, North Africa, Gaul, Germania, Judea, you name it. Rome is a multicultural stew bubbling with the flavors of empire, and just as prone to boiling over. Your first night is restless. Below you, the city groans and chatters, vendors barking out prices, soldiers stomping past in formation, a flute playing somewhere far off in the dark. There are no glass windows, no soft bedding, and definitely no HVAC. You roll over, trying to ignore the rats, and wonder if this was a mistake. It was. But now you're committed. Morning comes with no fanfare. Just the shout of a fishmonger and the blinding light through your shutterless window. You pull on your tunic and sandals, likely borrowed or poorly made, and head out. There's work to find, bread to earn, and Latin to mangle. You stumble into a marketplace, elbow to elbow, with locals buying olives, onions, wine diluted with water, and bread that could double as a discus. You don't have much coin, and the economy doesn't care. The currency, by the way, is the denarius, a silver coin that feels heavier than your savings account. Inflation's a problem even now, though Emperor Septimius Severus is still a few decades away from really torching the economy. If you get cheated, you won't notice. You'll just smile and nod and hope no one stabs you with a fish hook. Later, you find yourself gazing up at the Colosseum. It's massive, built from travertine and concrete, holding 50,000 roaring fans thirsty for spectacle. You're too poor to buy a seat, but if you're persistent and look pathetic enough, a wealthy patron might sponsor your entry. Don't get your hopes up. As the sun sets again over the city, you shuffle home past temples' forums and the occasional public urinal. Yes, they have those stone slabs with holes right out in the open. Modesty isn't a big deal here. You wash your hands at a public fountain, which also doubles as a bird bath, and quite possibly a dog trough. Rome is beautiful in that chipped mosaic kind of way. The buildings are ancient even now, and the roads echo with centuries of sandals. But underneath it all, you can already feel your body protesting. The air is polluted, the food uncertain, and the stress constant. You're only on day one, and already your knees ache, your stomach feels iffy, and you've got a weird cough. You make your way back to your insula, climb the uneven stairs, and lie down on straw that smells like 3 other people. You shut your eyes knowing that tomorrow you'll have to do it all again if your body holds out. And that's the real kicker. This city wasn't built to keep you alive into old age. Not unless you're wealthy male and blessed by every household god, from Janus to Jupiter. Even then, don't get too comfortable. Sleep well if the bedbugs let you. The sun blazes down on your second day, and already you're starting to understand this place doesn't take it easy on anyone, especially not your digestive system. Breakfast is light bread dipped in watered wine, or maybe a smear of cheese if you're lucky. Forget fresh fruit. That's for the countryside elite. You're stuck with yesterday's loaf, hard enough to chip a tooth. And yes, there are dentists in ancient Rome, but they're not who you want near your mouth. Their tools look like something from a medieval horror movie centuries early. You shuffle out into the street, stomach grumbling and head pounding slightly, maybe from the wine, maybe from the fumes of lead leaching from your water pipes. That's right, the famous Roman aqueducts marvels of engineering channel water through lead pipes. And lead, as we now know, is not exactly a vitamin supplement. Historians still argue whether Roman lead poisoning was widespread or mostly affected the elite sipping wine from lead-lined goblets. But you're drinking tap water from a communal fountain with 30 other people. It's not the lead that'll get you, it's the germs. You're not alone in your suffering. The streets are filled with people, some sick, many coughing, and a few dragging, festering feet. Hygiene exists in theory, but not practice. Public bathhouses are the communal solution. You pay a few coins to sweat it out in a steamy, tiled cavern with dozens of strangers. It sounds relaxing until you remember there's no chlorine, no soap, and absolutely no personal bubbles. Also, don't step on the tile too fast. It's as slippery as it is suspiciously slimy. Still, you give it a try. You go to the thermi peel off your sweat-drenched tunic and shuffle into the frigidarium cold room, tepidarium warm, and finally, the caldarium hot. You sweat out every regret and a few future ones too. For a moment, you think maybe this is good for me. And then you see the strigil, a curved blade used to scrape sweat oil and grime off your skin. There's no privacy, no separate implements. That guy next to you just handed his used strigil to the attendant, who dips it once in a murky bucket and passes it to you. You pause. Your skin itches in protest. But you go through with it anyway, wincing as centuries of questionable hygiene decisions slide off your back. Refreshed, or at least scrubbed raw, you return to the streets. But your body is already waging war on invisible fronts. Roman medicine is creative. Some doctors follow Hippocratic theory. Others go by astrology or just wing it. You might get bloodlet for a headache or be told to drink a concoction of vinegar and goat's urine for stomach pains. Spoiler, neither works. And if you get seriously ill, hope you know someone with connections. The best physicians serve the rich. And even then, their methods are about 70% guessing, 20% superstition, and 10% actual care. Surgical tools exist, yes, but anesthesia doesn't. Cauterization is considered a good time. You're better off lighting a candle to Asclepius, the god of medicine, and hoping he's in a good mood. As you stumble through a mid-afternoon haze, you pass a procession of priests swinging incense and chanting in Latin. It's a festival day again. Rome has so many holidays, it's a wonder any work ever gets done. Today's celebration involves sacrifices, music, and copious drinking. You join in because, well, it's better than thinking about your current life expectancy. Speaking of sacrifices, you watch as a bull is led up the Capitol steps. It's decorated with ribbons and herbs, and a priest inspects its organs after the kill to read the future. The liver apparently says, good things are ahead. You're not so sure. Later, you find yourself at a papina, a street tavern, half bar, half fast food stand. The wine's cheap and cut with seawater to make it taste older. The food is indistinct. Maybe beans, maybe dormouse stew. You don't ask. You just eat and pray your stomach can hold a truce. By nightfall, you're exhausted. Your body aches in places you didn't know existed. Your skin has broken out in mysterious spots, and your nose keeps bleeding, probably from the dry, smoke-filled air, and that lead again. You trudge back to your tenement where the neighbors are arguing again. Something about a goat. You collapse on your straw mat, sighing. You made it through another day. But you can already feel the wear and tear. Your immune system is under siege. The air is full of pathogens, the food is suspect, and the stress constant. Roman city life is like a treadmill greased with olive oil, fast, slippery, and eventually fatal. You drift off, wondering how anyone makes it to 60 here. The answer: most don't. You wake with the sun and a stiff neck from sleeping on what might generously be described as a pillow, but more accurately feels like a rolled-up cabbage sack. Your back cracks audibly as you sit up. You're sore, itchy, and vaguely worried about the rash forming on your leg. But the day begins, whether you're ready or not. You've heard Romans are obsessed with discipline and routine, and that's true if you're in the army. For the average city dweller like you, routine means surviving long enough to finish your errands without catching scabies or falling into an open sewer. Step 1, breakfast again if there's any left. It's the same bread and wine routine. But you also have a few figs this morning, small victory. They're overripe and buzzing with flies, but they'll keep you going for a few hours. You're scheduled to work today something humble, maybe sweeping the floor of a bathhouse or delivering amphorae of olive oil. Doesn't matter. The point is, labor is physical, relentless, and entirely unprotected. No unions, no rights, no helmets. You lug clay jars half your weight through alleys that reek of human waste and fish guts, dodging angry donkeys and drunken citizens with roughly equal speed. And of course, it's hot. The kind of hot where your tunic sticks to you in places you didn't know could sweat. Shade is rare and reserved for the upper class. You glimpse them sometimes reclining in their shaded courtyards, sipping cool drinks, dictating letters to scribes. You meanwhile have blisters forming on your hands from the rope chafing during your deliveries. At the market, you pause to catch your breath. It's chaos. Stall after stall of pungent produce, suspicious meats, and vendors yelling prices like it's a vocal endurance contest. You see a man selling perfume, another with dyed fabrics, and a butcher waving flies away with a twig. The entire place smells like basil urine and despair. You try to haggle for a better price on a small clay oil lamp. The vendor laughs in your face and gestures toward a more expensive lamp that comes with a tiny carving of Venus on the side. It's adorable and absolutely out of your price range. You settle for the plain one, chipped and soot-stained. a fitting metaphor perhaps for your soul at this point. As you carry on with your tasks, you catch wind of an argument breaking out near the forum. A man is being publicly accused of stealing from a shrine. He protests loudly, but the crowd isn't sympathetic. One bystander mutters about the punishment fitting the crime. You suddenly remember ancient Roman justice doesn't always care about fairness. Minor crimes can lead to flogging, exile, or worse. And if you're enslaved, even suspicion is enough for punishment. Historians still argue whether the Romans truly believed their punishments were moral or simply feared chaos more than injustice. Either way, justice here isn't blind. It just squints at your social class. You duck away before things escalate and head to a public latrine. It's crowded, noisy, and surprisingly social. Romans saw bathroom breaks as networking opportunities. You try not to make eye contact. The communal sponge-on-a-stick situation, shared rinsed-in salty water, is a hygiene horror story all its own. You consider holding it, but nature eventually wins. You exit feeling spiritually diminished. Back on the street, someone's shouting about the next chariot race. It's all anyone talks about. The Circus Maximus is the main entertainment event of the era, seating hundreds of thousands of fans, all screaming for their favorite teams, blues, greens, reds, or whites. Think NASCAR if NASCAR had knife fights and sabotage mid-race. You decide to watch. Entry is free thanks to state-sponsored bread and circuses. You find a spot high in the stands, unshaded naturally. The crowd is electric. As the horses gallop past, you're momentarily distracted from your aching feet and sunburned shoulders. And then a chariot crashes. The crowd roars. You wince. That driver won't be reaching 60 either. Afterward, you walk back through the city, your path lit by flickering oil lamps. The noise of the race still rings in your ears, mingling with the hum of taverns and distant arguments. You pass a woman singing while grinding grain, her voice barely audible above the din. She catches your eye and smiles. You nod back. It's one of the few peaceful moments in the whole day. By the time you return to your insula, you're drained. But sleep doesn't come easy. The building creaks like it's plotting collapse. And honestly, it might be. These apartment blocks were built fast and cheap. Fires are frequent. Structural integrity is theoretical. You lie awake listening for the telltale crack of a support beam snapping under the weight of 5 more stories above you. Your stomach gurgles unhappily, either from the figs or that questionable wine. You think about your odds. Romans didn't track birthdays quite like we do, but census data and tombstones suggest most commoners never made it past their 40s. Reaching 60, that was rare. A badge of survival. A long, hard-earned shuffle past bad food, bad luck, and worse medicine. Tonight, you're not confident you'll join that elite club. You crawl out of bed an hour before dawn because your stomach rumbles louder than the neighbor's goat. Breakfast, like destiny, is predetermined bread, a splash of watered wine, and whatever optimism you can fake. The loaf is yesterday's hardened to geological firmness. You clench it in both hands, bang it against the table, and a cockroach scuttles out protein upgrade if you're brave. Romans call this panis plebeius, the people's bread, baked from coarse flour full of bran grit and sometimes sand that slipped in at the mill. Nobody worries about gluten. Everyone worries about breaking teeth. You chew anyway, eyes watering. To wash it down, you grab the earthen cup by your bed. Inside vinum dilutum, the civilized blend of 1 part wine to 3 parts water. Too weak to impress Bacchus, too strong to satisfy modern purists, but just right to keep the peace between thirst and budget. Problem is, the water traveled through lead pipes, and the wine sat in a lead-glazed jug. Sweet, metallic undertones hint at the future headache slipping stealthily into your bloodstream. Still, the Romans insist lead makes life delicious. They even boil grape must in lead pots to create sapa, a syrupy sweetener. Historians still argue whether that culinary genius slowly sabotaged imperial health or merely flavored dessert. You'll ponder the debate later. Right now, you drizzle a few drops onto a hunk of bread. It tastes like raisins and faint pennies, but hey, it's the closest thing to jam you'll get. Mid-morning, you join the queue at the Horia Rome's public granaries for your monthly grain dole, one mainstream fact hammered into every tablet: the annona keeps citizens fed, and more importantly, politically quiet. You present your token shuffle forward and receive a sack of wheat. No ancient calorie labels, but you suspect it's enough to keep you vertical. The man behind you cracks a joke about hoping the weevils haven't paid rent yet. You both laugh, then sneeze as dust puffs out of the bag. Bargain protein strikes again. A vendor nearby hawks hot pulls a porridge of grains, veggies, and mystery meat. You treat yourself to a bowl because A, you need warmth, and B, you like gambling with stomach cramps. A stray cat circles your feet. You flick it a crumb, and it eyes you like you've offered caviar. The porridge tastes better than the bread, until you find a pebble and nearly chip a molar. Light joke number 2 of the day: Roman dentists charge extra for extraction and storytelling. So maybe keep the pebble as a souvenir. Lunch prandium arrives, almost invisibly. Maybe an olive, maybe some cheese if the market price hasn't spiked. Wealthy Romans savor multi-course spreads, but you dream of a second olive. You sip more diluted wine, already noticing a slight sweet note. That's the lead again, playing sommelier. Scholars debate whether lead ruined Roman fertility more than warfare, but you're mostly concerned with making it to supper without keeling over. By late afternoon, you're craving variety. You drift toward a stall selling garum, the infamous fermented fish sauce that perfumes the street with eau de beach leftovers. 1 drop on bread masks the stale flavor. 2 drops melt your sinuses. The merchant winks and says his garum cures coughs. You cough politely into your sleeve and move on. Quirky tidbit achieved. For a treat, you consider figs soaked in wine ficcatum. They look tempting, but your purse is light. Instead, you watch a baker sprinkle poppy seeds onto fresh rolls for wealthier passers-by. A little voice inside suggests you borrow one when he turns. You resist. Roman law isn't fond of petty thieves, and the lash doesn't pair well with dinner. Speaking of lashings, joke number 3 slips in. When you remember last week's rumor, some senator blamed an upset stomach on bad oysters and ordered the cook condemned. You wonder how often indigestion shapes policy around here. Evening draws near, and smoke wafts from communal ovens. You bring your grain to be baked: small fee, large queue, larger gossip. 2 matrons debate whether Emperor Commodus poisoned the city reservoirs to cull dissent. Another claims the reservoirs are fine and her rheumatism comes from evil eyes. Historians still argue whether superstition or science guides these kitchens, but the bread keeps rising so no one presses the issue. Supper cena is the day's highlight. You manage a stew of lentils, onions, and a scrap of pork belly that smells suspiciously like next month's problem. You season with a dash of defrutum, yet another grape reduction boiled down in, you guessed it, lead pans. The sweetness lifts the dish. The invisible toxins slip beneath your radar. You spoon it down with contented sighs while your roommate recounts how his uncle swears by powdered mackerel bones as a hangover cure. You nod solemnly. Everyone's an expert after the 3rd cup of wine. Your lamp flickers, fueled by rancid olive oil. Shadows dance on plaster walls, and you recall that mainstream fact about Roman calories. Common citizens consume between 2,500 and 3,000, and daily, heavy on carbs, light on vitamins. Good luck finding kale. Scurvy lurks like a distant rumor, especially for sailors. But landlubbers risk it too if they skip greens, a reminder to chew that handful of bitter herbs you saved from the market. You stretch bellyful, yet strangely unsatisfied. A faint metallic tang coats your tongue. You imagine tiny particles swirling in your veins, building an empire of their own along your nervous system. Someday they'll tighten your joints, fog your mind, maybe even stop your heart. For now, though, you just feel sleepy, and not in the cozy way. You set the lamp on a crate, lie down on straw that crackles like old parchment, and let your thoughts wander. Remember the pebble from breakfast. You still taste grit between your teeth. Tomorrow, you'll grind grain again, knead dough again, and pray the lead stays politely quiet. 60 feels distant, shining on a hill you might never climb. But tonight, at least you have bread wine and a heartbeat heavy with minerals, but still stubbornly yours. You wake with a start, not from a nightmare, but from your neighbor's donkey relieving itself near your window. Again. It's not the worst alarm clock you've had this week. At least it doesn't involve fire or the tavern brawl flute player who believes his 3 a.m. solos are divine blessings. You rise groggy, throat dry. Your sleep was thin, Roman nights tend to be. Between the fleas, street noise, and general anxiety about earthquakes, you rarely reach REM before dawn. You toss on your tunic and step outside into the dusty morning light, squinting as if it owes you money. Today is a market day, which means one thing: crowds and pickpockets, and a surprising number of philosophers trying to trade onions for existential acceptance. You shuffle into the bustle anyway, because you need more than bread to stay vertical vitamins variety, and maybe a plum if the gods are feeling whimsical. You pass a street vendor selling what looks like cabbage. It might actually be cabbage. Hard to tell. Roman produce is like Roman coinage, frequently debased. Still, cabbage is revered. The famed General Cato once praised it as the ultimate health food, claiming it could cure everything from hangovers to wounds. Historians still debate whether that was based on observation or wishful thinking. You buy one anyway. It's probably fine. Next up, the communal latrines. You dread this part of the day. Not because of the smell, though, that could kill a gladiator, but because of the hygiene. Romans used shared sponge sticks soaked in vinegar, known as tersorium. You stare at the bucket and wonder how many strangers have wiped before you. You try not to imagine the microbial party happening within. Light joke number 1 for today. If you die before 60, it may not be battle or plague, it could be communal butt sponges. With your business done, you head for the thermae public baths. The Romans may skimp on toilet hygiene, but when it comes to bathing, they're obsessive. Inside the apoditerium, you strip down with dozens of others. Privacy is for senators and statues. You store your clothes in a cubby watched by a slave who looks entirely uninterested in preventing theft. Next, the tepidarium, where warm air hugs your skin and sweat begins to bead. Then the caldarium, hot, steamy, and vaguely terrifying. Your skin prickles as the heat opens your pores like trap doors. You breathe in mineral-rich vapor and think, maybe this is healthy. Then you remember that the ceilings are blackened from smoke, and the fire pits burned the wood treated with pitch. Your lungs are exfoliating from the inside out. Still, the baths offer more than questionable aromatherapy. You get a massage with olive oil. Your attendant is an apprentice who talks too much about gladiator politics. You murmur agreement while he scrapes oil and grime from your back with a strigil. The sensation is oddly satisfying, like peeling sunburn in reverse. In the frigidarium, you plunge into cold water that slaps your body into full awareness. You emerge gasping, feeling cleaner, but not exactly healthy. Your joints ache. Your knees pop like ancient floorboards. A woman nearby mentions that her cousin uses ground snail shells for joint pain. You make a note to not try that. Now clean and clothed again, you stroll through the forum where your fellow citizens debate everything from grain prices to the emperor's sandals. Someone claims Jupiter's been throwing lightning bolts at goats again. Another swears he saw a comet last night, a bad omen. Historians still argue whether comets spurred panic or merely raised olive prices. You sip wine from a nearby stall and try not to trip over a child reenacting the Battle of Cannae using beetles and string. You pass a cellar of medicinal powders. He offers you ground deer, antler, and dried lizard tail. Good for vitality, he claims. Better than a doctor. Given the state of Roman medicine, he might be right. Doctors here are a mixed bag, some trained in Greek texts, others self-taught via experimentation and bravado. They favor bleeding leeches and foul-smelling poultices. You once knew a man who died from a doctor's misdiagnosis. He came in with a toothache and left in a toga-sized urn. Still, when your knee flares up, you consider visiting a healer who offers mummified mouse powder. It's supposed to help with inflammation. Light joke number 2. Your pharmacy options are rat dust or bleed, until better. You choose walking it off. Lunchtime brings another round of pull. Today's flavor includes barley carrots and something pretending to be goat. You chew slowly, watching the clouds drift above the insula. Those are Rome's famous apartment buildings, often stacked 6 stories high, made of timber and prayers. Fires are frequent, collapses too. You live on the 2nd floor and consider it safe, even though your neighbor's floor creaks like a death sentence. Your stomach gurgles likely the goat imposter's revenge. And you recall that most Romans suffer from chronic digestive issues. It's no wonder lead pipes limited hygiene and a diet that swings wildly between stale bread and fermented fish juice. Historians argue whether intestinal worms or untreated ulcers shortened more lives. You figure it's probably both. By late afternoon, you stretch under a portico and feel the day's wear settle into your bones. You cough a dry, metallic hack and wonder if that's from bath smoke, market dust, or years of slow lead sipping. Maybe all of them. A nearby musician plucks a lyre out of tune. It sounds like your knees when you crouch. Light joke number 3. If you make it to 60, the gods will personally send a scribe to document the miracle. Evening draws near. You feel hunger again. Supper is modest lentils, leftover porridge, maybe a plum, if you remembered to haggle earlier. The sun lowers, casting long shadows across crumbling stones. You eat and watch torchlight flicker across the alleys. Somewhere someone's laughing. Elsewhere someone's groaning. You hope you're always in the first group. Tomorrow brings more of the same markets, baths, cabbage, communal hygiene roulette. But tonight, you lie on your straw mattress and feel the ache in your joints as something almost familiar. A part of Roman life. Like pigeons in the forum or gossip about the emperor's mistress. You won't last to 60, maybe. But for now, you're still here, still chewing, still grumbling at donkeys. Your throat feels scratchy, your nose runs, and every sneeze rattles your ribs like dice in a tavern cup. You've survived cabbage roulette and communal sponge sticks, yet one pesky head cold might finish the job. Whatever it is, you need a doctor, or at least someone claiming the title. In Rome, that's a spectrum stretching from university-trained Greek physicians to street hawkers who learned medicine by eavesdropping outside the baths. You shuffle past a stall selling tin charms shaped like body parts. Eyes, livers, entire lungs. The vendor insists pinning the afflicted organ to your tunic invites divine healing. Quirky tidbits secured. You pin a tiny silver lung over your heart, feeling only vaguely ridiculous, then head toward the Sabara district, where healers cluster like mushrooms after rain. First stop a cramped shop boasting Methodist Galini Genuine. The physician inside is 20-something still sprouting a beard and smells sharply of boiled vinegar. He greets you with forced cheer and a wax tablet covered in diagrams of the four humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, yellow bile. Mainstream fact incoming: Galen's teachings dominate Roman medicine, preaching that balance of these fluids equals health. Your runny nose, excess phlegm, he announces, poking your neck as if searching for hidden coins. His solution: bloodletting naturally. He produces a shiny bronze lancet, thin as a sparrow's beak, and gestures toward your forearm. You hesitate. Behind him hangs a jar of leeches, writhing like inky ribbons. He notices your glance and brightens. Or we can go modern apply leeches to the temples. You imagine spending the afternoon with freshwater vampires dangling from your face. The room spins just thinking about it. You back away, muttering a promise to return with payment, then bolt into the alley. There, a rival practitioner somewhere between barber and butcher waves you over. His sign shows a razor, a tooth, and a chicken. You decide not to ask. He touts hot iron cauterization for all throat ailments. One sneeze, one sear. You picture the smell of your own flesh sizzling like festival sausage, and decide to keep shopping. Down the block, you meet an old herbalist named Marcia. Her booth is draped in drying rosemary mint and something that looks suspiciously like weeds from the Tiber bank. She listens to your symptoms, nods sagely, and hands you a sachet containing crushed willow bark, primitive aspirin. She instructs you to steep it in warm wine and inhale the steam. Sounds reasonable. Then she slips in her premium upsell, a tiny pouch filled with powdered gladiator sweat, alleged to fortify the spirit. Joke number 1, you decline, explaining you're already sweating enough for 2 gladiators. You continue clutching the willow bark when a man in a spotless toga intercepts you. He claims to be a disciple of Asclepius, god of healing, and offers prayer services for a modest fee, of course. He carries a live snake draped over his shoulders, its tongue flicking the air near your ear. You politely but firmly sidestep divine serpentine therapy. Eventually, you land at a small taberna medica reputed for surgical skill. Inside, shelves line the walls with bronze scalpels, forceps, bone saws, tools gleaming ominously under oil lamplight. The physician, grizzled and slow-moving, assesses you. Common cold, he mutters. Rest, fluids, maybe honey. You nearly hug him. But then he adds, unless it's paving stones in the lungs. Historians still argue whether chronic street dust causes the wasting cough. He offers to probe deeper with a long metal tube. You decide honey sounds perfect, actually. On your way out, you recall a rumor some Romans drink gladiator blood for vitality, believing the fighter's courage transfers through the cup. Joke number 2 surfaces. You wonder if that includes retirement gladiators, because at this point, even second-hand bravery might help. Armed with willow bark honey and skepticism, you return home. You brew the bark in a chipped cup, the steam smelling faintly of damp tree. You add a dollop of honey and sip while reclining on your straw mattress. The warmth soothes your throat, or maybe it's placebo. Placebo is underrated in Rome. Half the cures rely on it. Night falls and your roommate returns limping from slipping on lion fat at the bathhouse. You swap ailments like collectible tokens. He chuckles at your tiny silver lung pin, then shows you a seashell filled with beaver castor ointment, rumored to banish fevers. Quirky remedy countdown fulfilled. You both debate whether to seek professional help if symptoms worsen. The coin flips keep landing on probably. Doctors cost money, yet sickness costs life. Historians still argue whether Roman urbanites trusted doctors any more than fortune tellers. You suspect the latter wins on bedside manner. Hours pass. You sneeze less, but the room temperature drops. Winter drafts slip through the wooden shutters. You wrap yourself in a threadbare blanket and reminisce about that first bathhouse scrape. Remember the communal strigil. You decide your immune system beefed up from that near-death exfoliation. Before dozing, you tally today's potential killers: bloodletting infection, leech, misplacement, cauterization, burns, snake worship allergies, gladiator blood, hepatitis, and of course, untreated common cold. Reaching 60 seems less like a milestone and more like accidental immortality. Joke number 3 rises: if you do make it, you'll start charging tourists for the secret spoiler. It's 90% luck, 10% avoiding physicians with chickens on their signs. You blow out the lamp, letting darkness settle. Your lungs feel clearer, or maybe just resigned. Tomorrow you'll brave the forum again, but tonight you let the distant roar of nocturnal cartwheels lull you. Somewhere a healer rattles dice to choose tomorrow's remedies. Somewhere else a scholar copies Galen by lamplight, believing reason triumphs over chaos. You lie between those worlds, patient skeptic, survivor in training. Morning again. You wake up to a pigeon cooing through the cracked window slats your body stiff from sleeping on a straw mattress that's barely better than the ground. Your cold feels better, or maybe just dormant, lying in wait. You stretch, groaning as your joints protest. Every morning in Rome starts with a bit of negotiation between your spine and the cobblestones beneath your building. Today you're craving breakfast. If you're lucky, that means day-old bread soaked in watered wine, maybe a smear of olive paste if you've really splurged. But don't get excited, your teeth aren't what they used to be. Especially not if you're like most over 40 Romans who've been crunching gravel-laced bread since childhood. That's not an exaggeration. Mainstream fact here: Roman flour often contained bits of stone from hand milling. Slowly, imperceptibly, it ground away enamel like sandpaper on soft wood. So with molars worn flat and an incisor wobbling like a loose roof tile, you nibble delicately at the crust. Not ideal, but it's food. The day stretches ahead and it's market time. You tie your sandals if you're still lucky enough to own a pair and shuffle toward the forum. Streets bustle with vendors shouting over each other, children chasing stray goats, and cart drivers arguing in at least 4 languages. You're always dodging something: ox carts, piles of refuse, a man relieving himself against a temple wall. And then you cough. Again. Deeper this time. You remember the honey and willow bark from last night. It helped, but now your chest feels tight. You slow your pace, trying not to draw attention. The last thing you need is someone calling for the aiedo, the Roman equivalent of health inspectors, though more concerned with whether your presence offends the gods than your respiratory system. At the butcher's stall, you overhear someone complain about a neighbor who dropped dead after sneezing for a week. You chuckle half nervously. Joke number 1. He died how he lived, choking on the air. Next, stop the public fountain. You splash your face, dodging a row of women scrubbing clothes in the same basin. The water smells faintly metallic, but it's better than nothing. Quirky tidbit: Romans were unknowingly absorbing lead every day from their plumbing systems. Pipes were made from plum bum, the root of our modern word plumbing. Historians still argue whether widespread lead poisoning contributed to lower life expectancy or even Rome's eventual decline. You just know the taste is weird. Your friend Marcus greets you near the olive stand. He's 57 and proud of it, a rare feat. You ask his secret: avoid baths, trust no fish sauce, and never remarry. He laughs, but glances over his shoulder. Superstition runs deep. He carries an amulet shaped like a foot to ward off gout, a surprisingly common affliction among wine-drinking Romans. He offers to sell you a spare one shaped like a liver. You decline. 1 liver per person is enough trouble. You and Marcus wander toward a public lecture in the Forum. A philosopher stands on a stone step preaching about the Stoic virtue of accepting death with grace. You're intrigued, until he describes how the soul leaves through the breath. You cough again, not helpful. You sit to rest under a portico. Your feet ache. The sandals chafe your ankles. You've walked several miles already, not unusual in Rome, where commuting on foot was the norm. Mainstream fact, the average Roman covered 6 to 8 miles a day, sometimes more. That's Olympic-level cardio, assuming you survive the air pollution from all the oil lamps, cooking fires, and trash heaps. A breeze carries the scent of fried dormice and roasted onions from a nearby stall. Your stomach grumbles. You decide to splurge. The vendor hands you a skewer of mystery meat wrapped in fig leaf. It's salty, smoky, maybe bird, maybe not. Doesn't matter, it's warm, and your tongue thanks you. As you eat, you glance up at the rooftops. Balconies lean over the street, some propped up by what looks like divine will alone. Joke number 2. The buildings here are so rickety, you feel safer inside a gladiator ring. A loud creak echoes as someone dumps a chamber pot onto the street below. You jump back just in time. Close call, again. Your cough comes back as you walk home. You pass a funeral procession, flute players, mourners in rented robes, a body carried on a wooden bier. A priest chants, waving incense. You pause. The deceased looks young. You ask a bystander. 52, they say. Heart stopped at dinner. You nod solemnly, then think at least he got dinner. Back in your insula, the apartment building sways subtly with the wind. You climb 5 flights to your unit. Quirky tidbit, the higher the floor, the cheaper the rent, and the greater the risk. Fires spread fast, stairs collapse, and the water never reaches this high. You light your lamp and settle in. Your neighbor screams about mice again. Probably rats, but no one wants to admit that. You drink watered wine from a chipped cup and chew the rest of your stale bread. Your teeth hate you. But for now, you're full, warm, and alive. One last cough. You cough into your tunic, not your hand, because Roman etiquette says you should always keep the right hand clean for greetings. Joke number 3, you wonder how many illnesses have been spread just by polite nods and snotty handshakes. As night falls, you wrap your blanket around your shoulders and glance at the stars through a cracked shutter. You think about the philosopher's voice echoing earlier. Accept death with grace. Sure, but maybe tomorrow. For tonight, you're here worn out, a little wheezy, but here. You're awake again, coughing. It's past midnight, and the sounds of the city have changed. Rome at night is less shouting, more murmurs, soft footsteps in alleyways, clinks of amphorae being stacked, the low hum of conversations leaking from taverns that never quite close. Your chest feels heavier than yesterday. You shift on your cot, wrapping the wool blanket tighter. But sleep won't come. Maybe it's the ache in your ribs. Maybe it's the neighbor's baby crying through the thin walls. Maybe it's something older, quieter, the awareness that your body is not bouncing back the way it once did. You rise, lighting the small oil lamp beside you. It flickers low, casting wobbly shadows on the plaster wall. You rummage through a sack for the last of the dried figs, chewy, sweet cloying. They help with digestion, supposedly. You remember the apothecary from last week. He sold you a powder of crushed beetles and fennel, promising it would strengthen your lungs. Quirky tidbit, ancient Roman remedies often involved animal parts. Bat wings for sleep, fox lungs for courage, and yes, beetles for breathing issues. Historians still debate whether these concoctions had any actual benefit or were placebo wrapped in pungent superstition. You didn't notice much improvement, but the taste was unforgettable. You step outside onto the stairwell landing, hoping the cool air will help. The night sky above Rome is clearer than you'd expect. Not from lack of smoke, just less activity. From here you can see the edge of the Aventine Hill, a quiet bulk in the moonlight. Somewhere down there, the rich are dreaming on soft pillows. Their villas have mosaics, private bathhouses, and doctors who use scalpels made of bronze, not hope. You lean against the wall and look down at the city streets. Someone's shadow glides past. A woman carrying a jug. A stray dog picking through discarded lentils. A drunk humming a tune from a recent festival. You try to hum along, but your breath catches. The tune breaks apart like wet cloth in your lungs. You're not alone in this wheezing fate. Even Emperor Augustus suffered from chronic illness late in life. Mainstream fact, Roman elites, despite their wealth, faced many of the same medical limitations. Poor understanding of germs, dubious surgeries, herbal treatments rooted more in folklore than science. You make your way back inside and consider trying the garlic and honey paste the old woman downstairs gave you. She claimed it was an ancient Etruscan cure passed from her grandmother. It stinks. But you're out of options. You spread it on your tongue gag slightly and swallow. No instant miracles. Joke number 1, if it doesn't cure you, at least it'll keep burglars away. The floor creaks as someone else stirs. Your neighbor Lucilla lives with her adult son. She's 61, ancient by local standards. She always smells faintly of rosemary and wet stone. You think of her whenever people say no one lives past 60 here. She's proof you can. Maybe. If you avoid too much wine, keep your ankles warm, and pray to the right household gods. Speaking of which, you kneel beside your small household shrine, the lararium. Inside are clay figures of your ancestors, a blackened dish for incense, and a scrap of cloth with a scribbled charm. You light a pinch of dried laurel and whisper a few words, not so much prayer as habit. You're not sure you believe in divine intervention anymore, but it's something to do when you can't breathe. Then you remember something your uncle once said before he died of bad air during a particularly damp winter. You'll know your lungs are giving out when your dreams turn silent. You laugh softly. Joke number 2. Your dreams have been silent for months. It's almost dawn now. A rooster crows from somewhere you thought didn't allow livestock. You sit at the small wooden table rubbing your temples. Your eyesight's worsening, another reminder that aging in Rome is more than just aches. Cataracts were common and treatment options limited. There's record of one Roman surgeon using a needle to push the cloudy lens aside. Effective, if you're brave enough. You are not. You nibble on a pickled olive. It's too salty. You cough again and again. Your ribs feel like they've been wrapped in lead. You lean forward, head in your hands. Suddenly a loud clang echoes from outside. You jolt. A cart has overturned, spilling amphorae across the street. Wine and oil soak the dust. A crowd forms quickly, some to help, others to loot. Romans love a spectacle, always have. You close your eyes, trying to breathe slow. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Another trick someone once taught you. Doesn't help much, but it fills the time. As the sky lightens to gray, the city starts to stir again. You can hear the baker downstairs stoking his oven. The scent of charred grain drifts upward. You should eat, but you don't want to. Not today. Joke number 3. You always imagined your final illness would come with a chorus of weeping relatives. Not an empty fig jar and a cough that sounds like a door creaking open. You lie back down, pulling the blanket up to your chin. The lamp flickers and dies. You close your eyes and listen to your breath, to the city, to the sound of life rolling forward without pause. You're still here. For now. But something inside you whispers, maybe not for long. Morning light seeps through the cracks in your shutter like pale gold fingers. You're still in bed, and though you managed a little sleep, you wake feeling like you've aged another year. Your joints crack as you stretch your back protests, with a dull ache in your chest, well, that's still wheezing. But you're alive, and in ancient Rome, that's no small feat. The city is already humming below. Vendors are shouting carts, rattling chickens, protesting their cages. You roll off the cot and reach for your sandals. They're worn thin like your patience, but they still serve their purpose. The floor is cold this morning, damp from last night's chill. You mutter under your breath, joke one. If hypothermia doesn't kill you in this city, the drafts will. Your destination today is the public baths, not just for hygiene, but for warmth, gossip, and a bit of dignity. If you're lucky, the caldarium will be hot enough to loosen the stiffness in your bones. The thermi is one of Rome's more democratic inventions. For a small fee, even a plebeian like you can enjoy steam and conversation with strangers whose only common ground might be that they're still breathing. You shuffle down narrow streets, past graffiti-scrawled walls, offering everything from political slogans to poetic filth. Mainstream fact, Roman graffiti was rampant, and often surprisingly artistic or hilariously crude. One example, I hope your hemorrhoids burn like the sun. You pause to chuckle at something similar, etched into a brick near the bakery. As you approach the bath complex, the steam rising from within promises brief relief. You hand over a small coin to the attendant, who barely looks up. Inside, it's all echoes and tile voices bouncing off domed ceilings, wet feet slapping stone. The air is thick with the scent of sweat oil and crushed mint leaves. It's like walking into someone's warm exhale. You head first to the tepidarium, easing in gradually. The water soothes, but it also awakens memories of stronger days of running to the Tiber as a boy, of diving into cold rivers without thinking about your knees. Men nearby are chatting about the latest scandal involving a senator's wife and a visiting Greek poet. You close your eyes, tuning them out. One man sneezes violently into the water. You open your eyes again. Joke number 2. You came here to feel better, not to collect new infections. In the caldarium, your breath eases for the first time all day. The heat uncoils the tightness in your chest, even if just for a moment. A man beside you is discussing the best mixture for wrinkle cream, apparently goose fat and crushed pearls. You stifle a laugh. Historians still debate how effective Roman cosmetics really were, whether Cleopatra's kohl eyeliner protected against eye infections, or just looked nice while she blinked through political negotiations. Later, you lie on a warm stone slab while a bath attendant barely in his teens scrapes your skin with a strigil. It's both satisfying and vaguely humiliating. He makes a face at your flaking shoulders. You pretend not to notice. Aging here is visible tactile. The younger Romans see it as a cautionary tale. This is what happens if you live too long and work too hard. You dry yourself with a piece of coarse wool and move toward the exit. You can't afford scented oil today, so you settle for olive drippings from an old amphora someone left behind. It smells like cooking, not sophistication, but it's something. Outside, the sun is high now, and your joints are looser. The baths have done their job. For now. You walk slowly toward the market. Maybe you'll buy some lentils or a crust of bread soaked in wine. You don't have much appetite lately, but skipping meals is dangerous. Malnutrition weakens the body, and at your age there's no room for slip-ups. Mainstream fact Roman diets were often poor in protein for commoners. Bread, olives, and wine were staples, but a life on starch and acidity does little for longevity. You pass a group of children playing with carved wooden dice. Their laughter is shrill grating, but oddly sweet. One of them bumps into you and apologizes in a sing-song Latin cadence. You smile. They'll be old soon enough. Or not. In this city, tomorrow is never guaranteed. Back at your building, Lucilla is hanging washed tunics to dry. She waves. You wave back, wheezing slightly. She notices, offers a fig. You accept. She tells you about a temple sacrifice she attended recently, goats this time, not bulls. Less blood, more bleeding. She swears it cured her ankle pain. Joke number 3. If divine goats could really cure chronic pain, Rome would be the healthiest empire on earth. You sit on the steps together for a while, watching the world wobble on. A dog licks spilled wine off the cobblestones. A beggar sings off-key about Mars and money. A man with one eye sells cheap amulets he claims were blessed by Vestal virgins, highly unlikely, as those women aren't exactly handing out blessings on the street. You touch your chest again. Still tight, but less so. You wonder if you'll make it to Lucilla's age. You wonder if she ever sits alone at night, wondering the same. The sun starts to lower. Time to climb the stairs again, one hand gripping the wall. You make it to your room, sit on your cot, and let out a sigh that feels heavier than it should. Another day in Rome. You made it through, just barely. The morning air is crisp, but carries the unmistakable scent of the city's forges, the clang of metal echoing faintly down your street. Today's tasks loom heavy, though your limbs beg for rest. You shuffle towards the workshop district, where the blacksmith's hammer rings out the steady rhythm of labor. A reminder that survival here demands sweat and stubbornness. You pass stalls where merchants hawk ceramic bowls and dried figs, their calls mixing with the distant murmur of the Tiber's flow. A scruffy boy darts past, clutching a basket of breadcrumbs, pursued by a hungry street dog. You smile faintly, life in Rome, full of small dramas and relentless noise. Your destination is a humble apothecary, where you hope to find some balm for the persistent cough that has gripped your chest for weeks now. Respiratory ailments are common in the city thanks to smoke from countless fires and the ever-present dust stirred by carts and feet. Mainstream fact. The Roman use of herbs like mullein and licorice was widespread, though their effectiveness was modest at best. Inside the apothecary's shelves are cluttered with jars of dried roots and crushed minerals. You pick up a small vial of myrrh-infused oil, a soothing remedy for irritated throats. The owner, an elderly woman with keen eyes, warns that such treatments are no substitute for fresh air, something rare in Rome's congested quarters. As you step back into the sunlight, you ponder the city's sanitation, or lack thereof. The network of sewers and engineering marvels still struggles to contain waste, and outbreaks of respiratory and digestive illnesses flare up unpredictably. Historians still debate the exact impact of these conditions on average lifespan, but the evidence is clear. The air here isn't kind to aging lungs. You make your way toward a nearby forum where a lively crowd has gathered. Today's topic, the peculiar laws governing the use of lead pipes in Roman aqueducts. You overhear a discussion about how lead poisoning might have contributed to the decline of some noble families. An intriguing thought, if only you could trace the slow poison coursing through the water you drink. A child runs past, kicking a worn leather ball, his laughter ringing out despite the city's hardships. You watch him for a moment, then continue your walk back home, mindful of your own breath. The world is loud, relentless, and unforgiving to those who falter. Back in your room, the evening shadows stretch long, and you settle down with a small wax tablet jotting notes from memory about remedies you've heard and seen. The search for longevity is a constant one here, an imperfect blend of superstition and observation. You lie down the day's fatigue, settling into your bones. Despite the struggles, there is a quiet dignity in enduring another sunset in this ancient city. The dawn's light filters softly through the cracks of your wooden shutters, bringing with it the faint aroma of freshly baked bread wafting from the nearby bakery. You rise slowly, the creak of your joints, reminding you once more that age is a persistent companion. Today you decide to visit the market not just to gather provisions, but to observe the daily dance of Roman life. The marketplace is a cacophony of colors and sounds. Vibrant cloths hang in stalls beside baskets piled high with olives, figs, and pomegranates. The air is thick with the mingled scents of fresh herbs, cured meats, and the less pleasant tang of fish. Vendors shout their wares with practiced enthusiasm, their voices weaving a rhythmic backdrop to the bustling scene. You navigate through the crowd, mindful of the occasional stumble over stray pottery shards, or the unexpected splash of water from a cart. Mainstream fact: the Roman market was a hub of social and economic life, a place where citizens from all walks mingled and bartered daily essentials. Your attention is drawn to a small stall displaying a variety of loaves and pastries. The baker, a stout woman with flour-dusted hands, offers you a taste of her latest creation, a honey-sweetened bread that melts softly on your tongue. You accept, gratefully savoring the simple pleasure. Nearby, a group of elders discuss the merits of different medicinal herbs, debating which are most effective for soothing arthritis, a common affliction among your peers. They speak of willow bark, a natural pain reliever, long before aspirin would be discovered centuries later. You join in sharing your experiences and remedies gleaned from years of trial and error. Joke 1. If only the gods had invented ibuprofen, we'd all be dancing at the forum still. The group chuckles softly, a shared understanding passing between you. As you continue, your path crosses with a young artist sketching scenes of the market. His delicate lines capture the vibrancy of life around him, reminding you of the fleeting beauty amid hardship. Historians still argue whether such everyday artworks were meant for private reflection or public display, but their charm is undeniable. You pause to watch children playing a game of knucklebones, their laughter ringing clear and bright. The innocence of youth is a poignant contrast to the weight you carry, a reminder of time's relentless march. With your basket filled and heart a bit lighter, you begin your slow journey home, the city's rhythms echoing softly as the sun dips toward the horizon. The evening air carries a cool breeze, mingled with the faint smoke from hearth fires and the sweet scent of blooming jasmine from a nearby garden. You sit quietly on the stone steps of your modest domus, the soft chatter of neighbors drifting through the twilight. It's a time for reflection, a moment to consider the daily realities that shape your years in this vast empire. Tonight your thoughts turn to the Roman diet, a subject that has sparked more than a few debates among scholars and common folk alike. You recall how simple meals often consisted of pulse, a porridge made from wheat or barley, accompanied by vegetables, olives, and occasionally fish or meat when fortunes allowed. Mainstream fact: despite the opulence we hear about, many Romans ate a humble diet focused on grains and legumes. You take a sip from your clay cup filled with watered-down wine, a staple of Roman hydration. It's an acquired taste, but it helps mask the less pleasant flavors of water, drawn from public fountains, which were sometimes suspect. Lead pipes, as you overheard the other day, might have contributed to some health woes, though historians still argue about the extent of their impact. Your mind drifts to the peculiar customs surrounding meals, how reclining on couches was a privilege of the wealthy, while most citizens ate sitting upright or even standing. You chuckle softly at the thought, imagining your stoic neighbor trying to maintain balance on a plush couch after a heavy meal. Joke 2. If you've ever tried to nap right after dinner, you know why reclining was more about show than comfort. As darkness deepens, the sounds of the city shift to quieter tones. The distant bark of dogs, the soft footsteps of late wanderers, and the occasional burst of laughter from a nearby tavern. It's here in these moments that you ponder the fleeting nature of life and the delicate balance of health, fortune, and fate. Your eyes grow heavy, the rhythm of Rome's ancient heartbeat, lulling you toward rest. Tomorrow will bring its challenges, but for now, you savor the gentle calm that settles over the city. A gentle light filters through your window as dawn breaks once more, casting soft shadows across your worn wooden table. Today you find yourself pondering the strange and varied medical practices of Rome, remedies passed down through generations blending practical knowledge with superstition. You recall the herbal concoctions sold by street vendors' potions, promising relief for everything from headaches to digestive troubles. Some of these treatments, like the use of willow bark for pain, have a basis in what modern science would later confirm, while others are more dubious, a curious mix of hope and tradition. Mainstream fact. Roman physicians used a range of herbs, some surprisingly effective, others less so. The apothecary's shelves, cluttered with jars of dried plants and minerals, evoke a sense of organized chaos. You reach for a pinch of dried chamomile, known for its calming effects, reminding yourself of the soothing ritual of evening teas. It's a small comfort amid the uncertainty of health. Joke 3. If only they'd had caffeine back then, perhaps we'd all be more energetic and just as jittery. You think of the Roman baths, not just places of cleanliness, but centers for socializing and relaxation. These baths, heated by clever hypocaust systems, were believed to promote wellness and longevity. Yet historians still argue whether the communal nature of baths sometimes spread more ailments than they cured. Your thoughts wander to the curious use of crocodile dung as sunscreen, a fringe tidbit that seems almost too bizarre to be true, but speaks to the ingenuity and occasional desperation of ancient beauty and health practices. As you prepare for the day, the blend of practical remedies and whimsical traditions paints a vivid picture of life's delicate dance with mortality in ancient Rome. The quest to live longer was as much about ritual as it was about medicine. The city hums outside your window, alive and indifferent to your musings, and you settle into the comforting rhythm of another Roman day. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows over the cobblestones as you make your way toward the city's outskirts. Here, the bustle of the urban center softens into the slower rhythms of the countryside, dotted with olive groves and vineyards heavy with fruit. This transition from city to farm is a reminder of the stark contrasts within Roman life and of the different challenges faced by those who labored under the sun. You watch as farmers bend to their tasks, hands weathered and backs curved by years of toil. Their lives are shaped by the seasons, the soil, and the ever-present uncertainty of harvests. Mainstream fact, many Romans particularly. The rural poor endured hard physical labor that took a toll on their bodies, contributing to shorter lifespans. You recall stories of peculiar rural remedies and customs like using honey and vinegar to treat wounds, a practice both practical and soothing. You smile at the thought of the strange, lingering smell that often accompanied such treatments. Historians still debate how effective these home remedies truly were, but their persistence speaks to resilience and hope. Joke 1. Honey sweet on the tongue, sticky on the fingers, and apparently great for cuts. Nearby, a shepherd tends his flock, calling softly to the sheep. You watch the animals move slowly, their calm presence a contrast to the hectic city life you've left behind for a few moments. It's easy to see why the countryside was both a refuge and a place of hard realities. As you sit beneath an ancient olive tree, the breeze carrying the scent of earth and leaves you think about the social divides that shaped Roman health and longevity. The wealthy enjoyed baths, varied diets, and medical care, while the poor faced harsher conditions and harder choices. The sun dips lower, and the sky softens to shades of pink and gold. You rise feeling the gentle ache in your muscles, a reminder of your own mortality, but also the simple joys of life lived fully. As twilight deepens, you head back to the city, the soft glow of lamps flickering through windows, guiding your way home. The night wraps around the city like a soft, dark blanket, muffling sounds and inviting calm. You settle into your favorite chair near the flickering light of an oil lamp, the gentle warmth coaxing your tired limbs into relaxation. It's the perfect moment to reflect on the day's journey through the many facets of Roman life and the fragile thread by which your own days are counted. You remember the countless challenges faced by your ancestors, the illnesses that came without warning, the limited medical knowledge, the strains of daily labor, and the ever-present risk of accidents. Mainstream fact life expectancy in ancient Rome was often shortened by disease, poor sanitation, and injuries. Yet amid these hardships, there was resilience, a rich culture of community, ingenuity, in small pleasures that made the struggle worthwhile. You think of the soothing baths, the hearty meals, the laughter shared in taverns, and the stories passed down by firelight. Fringe tidbit. Some Romans believed that certain songs and lullabies could protect against bad dreams and illness, a poetic comfort in a harsh world. Historians still argue whether Rome's public health initiatives like aqueducts and sewers significantly extended lifespans or merely improved urban comfort, but their legacy is undeniable. You lean back, eyes growing heavy as the quiet night deepens. Your thoughts slow, drifting like the soft flicker of the lamp's flame. The city outside, alive yet serene, seems to breathe in time with you. Joke 3. If only the Romans had invented bedtime stories for grown-ups, we'd all sleep a little easier. As you let go of the day's worries, a gentle reassurance settles over you. Though the past was filled with challenges, it also carried moments of peace and beauty, much like the night itself. Now, as the final embers glow low, you feel a quiet invitation to rest, to dream, and to carry this peaceful history with you into sleep. Hey guys, tonight we're climbing into the lumpy straw mattress of time and waking up in ancient Rome with a headache, a rumbling stomach, and absolutely no ibuprofen in sight. You're wrapped in a rough woolen blanket, there's a faint scent of vinegar and smoke in the air, and your mouth tastes like last night's lentils. Something's not right. Your joints ache, your skin's clammy, and you've got the sinking feeling that whatever's wrong with you isn't going away with a glass of water and a nap. You're sick. And in ancient Rome, that's a problem. Because unless you're fabulously wealthy or extremely lucky, what happens next will be more trial than treatment. The concept of healthcare here is a bit fluid. The gods are as involved in your recovery as the guy with the rusty scalpel. And spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. Or at least you'll be very uncomfortable trying. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. I always love hearing how far this sleepy little history journey travels. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You swing your feet off the bed. The floor is cold, smooth stone underfoot. The faint sounds of street vendors and donkey carts echo up from outside. You shuffle toward the door, and already your stomach turns again. It's been acting up for days now. Cramping, bloating, that ominous internal gurgle. And worse, the neighbor's son had something similar last week and hasn't been seen since. In ancient Rome, illness isn't just a nuisance, it's a potential death sentence. The average Roman, if lucky, might live into their 40s. Disease, injury, childbirth, they're all waiting with open arms. Public health exists technically. There are aqueducts bringing in clean water sewer systems and even public toilets. But sanitation's patchy medical understanding is full of holes, and if your symptoms don't clear up fast, they may never clear up at all. You clutch your side wince and wonder if today's the day you call for the medicus. That's the Roman doctor, if you can afford one. He's not a general practitioner, as you know it, more like a cocktail of barber, herbalist, surgeon, philosopher, and occasional butcher. And even if he's trained, that training might mean a year or two apprenticing under someone whose only credential was surviving the last plague. Still, it beats dying alone. Maybe. As you groan your way through your small domus, you think about what might be wrong. You've eaten nothing strange lately, just olives, barley bread, a bit of fish. You haven't offended any gods that you know of. Though you did skip that offering to Aesculapius last month. Maybe he's angry. That's another layer to illness in Rome. Your body isn't just flesh and blood, it's a battleground for divine will. The gods can make you sick or heal you. Some Romans still believe disease is caused by miasma, bad air, especially from swamps or decaying matter. And others are starting to think about bodily balance. Hot, cold, wet, and dry. You don't know what it is, but something in your gut feels off balance enough to send a centurion running. You grab your shoulder in pain, and a stray thought flickers. What if this is how the famous philosopher Seneca died? Probably not. He was forced to slit his wrists in a tub. Still, you're not above dramatic comparisons. You sit back on your couch, which is really more of a stone bench with cushions, and glance at the small household shrine in the corner. Maybe it's time to pray. Or maybe time to give in and let someone else take a look at you. Just then, your slaver, your attendant, returns from the forum. He eyes you nervously. You must look worse than you thought. "Shall I fetch the medicus?" he asks. You nod slowly. As he leaves, you try to steady your breath. You've heard stories. Some medici are miracle workers. Others are walking disasters in saffron robes. One reportedly used cabbage juice for everything from baldness to bowel infections. Another swore by crushed pearls in vinegar. You're hoping for someone slightly more grounded. Historians still argue whether Roman doctors actually helped more people than they harmed. Some believe the educated elite, those who studied in Alexandria or followed Galenic methods, offered real insight. Others point to the dangerously creative prescriptions and frighteningly invasive surgeries as proof that these men were often guessing at best. You lie back trying not to think about the worst-case scenarios. You once heard of a man treated for fever with alternating ice baths and red-hot metal placed near the skin. He did not survive, but not all is grim. Rome is, after all, a civilization built on innovation. They've mapped nerves, studied wounds, and invented tools still recognizable today: forceps, scalpels, bone drills. And they're big believers in observation. If your doctor's competent, he'll notice patterns, monitor your symptoms, and maybe, just maybe, he won't reach straight for the leeches. The sun filters through the cloth-draped window. Outside, you can hear the bustle of the street. Life in Rome carries on. Merchants haggle children, chase dogs, a water seller yells into the square. And here you are, sweating through your tunic, wondering whether your next visitor will bring healing or something far more medieval. You try to find the humor in it. A little voice in your head whispers, "Maybe it's just gas." You'd laugh, but that would hurt. There's a knock at the door. Your medicus has arrived. The medicus steps into your home like he owns it. which, given his reputation and the coin you'll probably owe him, he practically does. He's older than you expected, with streaks of silver in his curled hair and a thin leather satchel that clinks faintly as he moves. You try not to imagine what's inside. Needles, hooks, maybe another patient's spleen. He surveys you with the solemnity of a priest inspecting a sacrificial lamb. You try to sit straighter despite the cramps clawing at your side. He doesn't greet you right away. Instead, he walks a slow circle around your couch, nodding occasionally, as though your illness has a smell he's trying to memorize. Finally, he speaks. When did the pain begin? His voice is dry as amphora dust. You give a vague answer. 3 days, maybe 4 times blurry when everything hurts. He hums and opens his bag. Inside, a bronze tongue depressor, a small glass vial of something the color of pond water, a roll of linen, and a tightly bound set of metal tools you instinctively hope he won't touch. He pulls out a small candle and lights it from the hearth. Open your mouth, he says, as if you're a donkey being prepped for shoeing. You comply, suppressing the urge to bite him. This is diagnosis Roman style. Forget blood work and scans. Your doctor uses sight, smell, and sound. He'll tap your belly, examine your tongue, inspect your eyes, listen to your cough. And if you've got the coin, he might even take your pulse. Galen, Rome's medical celebrity, believed pulses could reveal imbalances in the body's humors. Yes, humors. According to medical theory at the time, your body runs on 4 fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Feeling sluggish, too much phlegm. Angry and feverish, probably excess yellow bile. There's a chart for it somewhere. He places a hand on your abdomen. It's warm, clammy, and visibly distended. You've been eating beans, he says flatly. Guilty. Lentils, too. He pinches your wrist gently, watching the color return to your skin. Humor's out of balance, he mutters almost to himself. Possibly obstructed bowels or dampness of the spleen. You blink. That last part sounded more poetic than clinical. He rummages through his satchel again, pulls out a leather-bound notebook, and jots something down. You're surprised many Roman physicians kept personal journals recording symptoms and outcomes to improve their craft. This guy might not be a fraud after all. You shift uncomfortably on the bench. He notices and frowns. Your urine, he says. Have someone fetch it. Oh, good. Here we go. In ancient Rome, uroscopy is standard. That means peeing into a ceramic pot so your doctor can examine the color, smell, and sediment. Deep yellow dehydrated. Pale and cloudy, too much phlegm. Reddish and murky, you might not want to know. Your servant returns quickly with the sample because of course he does. The medicus holds it up to the light, squinting with theatrical concern. Thick sediment, he murmurs. This confirms it. Liver heat, possibly inflamed bile. You nod like you understand. You don't. But you do understand what comes next: treatment. And this is where things get experimental. First, he says we purge. You flinch. That word never means anything good in ancient medicine. Purging might involve a laxative, if you're lucky, or vomiting induced by drinking ox bile mixed with vinegar, if you're not. But it was believed to reset the humors, to clear the system of excesses and start fresh. He hands you a small cup of herbal sludge. You hesitate. Sweetened with honey, he offers helpfully. It's not sweet. You down it anyway, gagging as it hits your stomach and starts plotting its escape route. A few minutes pass. Then your body clenches like a drawn bow and the real show begins. We'll spare you the vivid details, but let's just say your floor tiles will need scrubbing. This is step 1 of many. Roman medicine was often aggressive. Physicians didn't sit and wait. They intervened. That might mean bleeding, cutting a vein to let out excess blood, or cupping where hot glass cups are placed on the skin to draw bad humors outward. Some used leeches, especially if they followed Greek traditions. Others preferred scarification light cuts on the skin to encourage draining. You wonder if this is helping. You also wonder if you're dying. Meanwhile, the medicus is calmly preparing a plaster, a paste of mashed garlic honey, and perhaps a touch of powdered lead. Applied to the stomach, it's meant to draw out internal heat. It mostly draws flies. He wraps your midsection in linen, soaked in cool vinegar and herbs. The scent is oddly pleasant, like a salad on a hot day. This will soothe the inflammation, he explains, and restore balance. Historians still argue whether Roman external remedies like plasters and poultices had genuine medicinal effects or simply served as comfort rituals. Some ingredients like honey and vinegar did have antimicrobial properties. Others like crushed emeralds or powdered mouse skull were more imaginative. But even imagination has its place in medicine. The mind matters. Romans believed in the power of belief. If you thought the treatment would work, if you trusted your medicus, you were more likely to recover. It wasn't placebo. It was psychological warfare against disease. You lie back weak, but oddly grateful. The cramping has lessened, or maybe your body's just too tired to keep protesting. The medicus offers you a few final instructions: boiled barley broth for meals light movement if you can manage it, and no figs too heating, he warns. You ask if he'll return. If the gods permit, he says already halfway to the door. You watch him go, unsure whether to feel relieved or terrified. Your body aches, your dignity's in tatters. But for the first time in days, your skin doesn't feel like it's on fire. Maybe this guy knew what he was doing. Or maybe your humors just got bored and left. You close your eyes and drift into a shallow sleep, one ear tuned to the sounds of the street, the other to your stomach waiting for signs of peace or renewed war. By morning, your body feels like it's been through a full-scale siege, but oddly, a bit less like it's losing. Your insides have calmed, if only marginally, and the sweating has stopped. You're not celebrating yet, but the fact that you can sit up without seeing stars feels like a small miracle. Still, you're far from healthy. The medicus's instructions linger in your mind, especially the one about barley broth. Your servant brings a steaming bowl, pale, mushy, utterly flavorless. It smells like damp bread and regret. You sip it anyway because in ancient Rome, food isn't just nutrition, it's medicine. Doctors were obsessed with diet, not in the modern low-carb cleanse kind of way, but as the foundational tool for rebalancing the humors. Galen himself wrote entire treatises on which foods produced warmth, cold moisture, or dryness in the body. Leeks might heat you up. Lettuce cools you down. Bread, depending on how it's baked, could cure or kill. You reach for a fig, just one. They're ripe and impossible to resist, but your servant snatches it away like it's poison. Right. No figs. You mutter something rude in Greek. He wisely ignores it. As you sip your soggy barley, you start to wonder, what happens when food and herbs aren't enough? What if the ailment runs deeper beneath the skin, into the bones, into the very marrow of being? That's when Roman doctors roll up their sleeves. Surgery. Now let's pause here. You're probably imagining gleaming metal tools, antiseptic cloths, and surgeons in crisp tunics. Erase all of that. Roman surgery is a world of bronze scalpels, no anesthesia beyond poppy juice, and outcomes that hinge heavily on luck, skill, and how well the gods like you that day. Let's say, for example, you've got an abscess. It's swollen, angry, pulsing with heat. The medicus would assess it the way a mason evaluates a bulging wall. Is it going to collapse, or can it be drained? He prepares the site with wine or vinegar disinfectant, sort of. Then with a small, curved knife, he opens it. Slowly. Deliberately. If you're lucky, someone is holding your arms. If not, you may try to leap off the bench. Either way, the pus flows, and with it, hopefully, the danger. You cry. Everyone cries. That's not weakness. That's survival. Once drained, the wound is packed with honey-soaked lint, maybe some myrrh or crushed herbs, and bandaged. Healing is slow, painful, and full of risk. But sometimes it works. You think of a neighbor, an older man with a limp and a wicked scar along his thigh. Arrow wound, he told you once, from a hunting accident. Medicus saved the leg, though he took half the muscle. He'd laughed when he said it, but you remember the wince he tried to hide when standing up. Roman surgical tools were surprisingly sophisticated forceps, bone drills, catheters, scalpels of various shapes. They even had speculums for gynecological exams, which looked more like torture devices than medical ones. And while these instruments are impressive in bronze, they were rarely sterile and always risky. You recall stories from soldiers' battlefield surgeries done in haste, broken limbs, reset with wooden splints, arrows removed with hooked tools, cauterization done over open flame to stop bleeding. No sleeping gas, just bite down and scream. Yet surgery wasn't only battlefield business. If you had bladder stones, a common affliction, there was a procedure called lithotomy. It involved an incision between the genitals and the anus, a small probe inserted to find the stone, and then extraction. The pain. Let's not talk about it. The success rate mixed. But if you survived, you'd walk funny and talk about it forever. Historians still argue whether Roman surgical techniques were widespread or reserved mostly for military and elite cases. There's evidence of trepanation, cutting a hole in the skull to relieve pressure or remove bad spirits, but it's unclear how often it worked or whether those patients lived to brag about it. Still, the very fact that such procedures existed is remarkable. Rome, for all its chaos and superstition, was a place where people pushed medical boundaries. Some of the texts survived, influencing later Islamic and European medical traditions. Others were lost, buried under ashwar or time. You shift again on your couch, grateful your condition didn't merit a knife. At least not yet. Outside, the city begins to stir. You hear merchants setting up stalls, carts rattling along stone roads, children yelling something about figs. The medicus has promised to return later, probably to poke your abdomen again and frown meaningfully. You wonder what else he might do. Bleeding unlikely. You're already pale. A cleansing enema. Gods help you. You've heard about those warm oil a reed tube and the firm encouragement of a trained assistant. You're suddenly very invested in getting better fast. Then again, maybe he'll bring another plaster. The last one, for all its stickiness and smell, actually soothed your skin. You recall reading once that Romans used crocodile dung in cosmetics and medicine, supposedly warming. You pray your doctor draws the line at reptiles. Fringe theories abound in Roman medicine. Some swore by crushed pearls for stomach pain. Others believed in amulets made of wolf teeth or bound herbs to ward off disease. A few even claimed that placing a dead mouse on a toothache would draw out the pain. You're not desperate enough for that. Yet, your servant returns with fresh linen for your bandages. He gives you a sympathetic look as he checks your brow. No fever, he says. Progress. You lean back, letting your eyes close. For now, the worst is past. But in Rome, as in life, illness is a cycle. There's no permanent fix, just temporary reprieve. You drift off barley broth cooling beside you, mind spinning slowly with strange visions, bleeding bowls, bronze scalpels, and a mouse balanced precariously on someone's jaw. Sweet dreams. You wake to a polite throat clearing in the doorway. The medicus is back, sunlight glinting off the bronze buckles of his satchel. Judging by the way he's smiling like a shopkeeper with too much inventory, you suspect he has a whole menu of fresh remedies. Your gut clenches, instantly suspicious. He sits on a low stool, unrolls a waxed linen cloth, and begins laying out vials and packets as though arranging a still life, a stoppered flask of pale syrup, a folded leaf parcel, a small wooden box that rattles ominously, and a slender clay tube sealed with wax. Each item gleams with promise and menace. Your humors, he begins, are still quarreling like drunken tribunes. We must persuade them back to harmony. You nod diplomatically. Harmony sounds nice. You'd settle for not sprinting to the latrine every 15 minutes. He lifts the first vial, a translucent liquid tinted faintly pink. Sapa grape must boiled with a touch of litharge. Litharge, you recall, is lead oxide. Mainstream fact, Romans used lead to sweeten wines and syrups, unaware that it quietly sabotaged their organs. Great. A poison popsicle for your intestines. You raise an eyebrow. He anticipates your concern. Only a touch, he assures, enough to mellow the flavor and soothe inflamed tissues. You wonder if mellow is Latin for nibble your nervous system, but you take the tiniest sip. It's alarmingly sweet, like raisins soaked in coins. Joke one escapes your lips, delicious tastes like bankruptcy and bad decisions. The medicus pretends not to hear. Next, he unwraps the leaf parcel. Inside, crisp layers of lettuce glisten with dew. Lactuca, he says, to cool the liver's fiery spirits. Romans loved lettuce at bedtime. They believed it induced sleep. You nibble obediently, half expecting lullaby effects. Instead, you chew gritty greens and imagine your humors lounging on chaise longues, fanning themselves with cabbage leaves. He reaches for the clay tube. With a twist, the wax pops free, releasing a whiff of crushed herbs and something else. Tiny black flecks glimmer inside. Ground cantharides, he explains. Spanish fly. Yes, the infamous blister beetle. Quirky tidbit, some Romans considered cantharides an aphrodisiac. Others used it as a diuretic. Many discovered too late that it's also a spectacular renal irritant. You blanch. Only a pinch, he says cheerfully. He sprinkles the glittering dust into watered wine. You sip again, tasting bitterness under the lead-tinged sweetness. Your kidneys stage a protest march. He then produces the rattling box, inside dried centipedes mashed into coarse powder. For courage, he claims as though gallantry lives in arthropod husks. Joke 2 surfaces courage. I was hoping for an exit strategy. Again, he ignores you, scribbling notes on a wax tablet. The stylus scratches like faint thunder. With the pharmaceutical parade over, he announces Phase 2 oraciones. A prayer. He fishes a palm-sized amulet from his robe, a bronze disc engraved with a snake coiled around a staff. Asclepius' symbol. He presses it against your forehead, muttering rhythmic Greek phrases. The metal is cool, the superstition oddly comforting. Historians still argue whether such rituals provided genuine therapeutic benefit or simply calmed anxious patients long enough for natural recovery. You decide you don't care as long as something works. Prayer concluded, he dips a reed pen into ink and sketches dietary instructions on a shard of pottery writing material cheaper than parchment. It reads like a culinary prank. Morning barley broth again warmed with mint. Midday lettuce, boiled leeks of fig if you behave. Evening thin wine cut with sapa, small bite of goat cheese, rubbed in honey. Notice he says, tapping the list, no beans, no garum, no figs after dusk. Apparently figs are only traitorous before sunset. You force a grateful smile, though internally you mourn the flavorful life you once led. Still, compared to surgery-led syrup, seems negotiable. He packs his tools but hesitates. One more measure, he says, retrieving a slim silver needle, delicate, almost modern-looking. Scarification. Tiny scratches along the abdomen to release excess heat. He gestures for you to lie back. You gulp. At least it's not a knife. The needle glides quick and shallow, leaving thin red lines. It stings, but nothing like yesterday's purge. He wipes the scratches with warm vinegar, sharp, clean, oddly bracing. You breathe through it, counting cracks in the ceiling beams. When he's done, linen strips, dipped in rose oil, cover the marks. The fragrance drifts up, masking vinegar and fear alike. You feel, dare you think it, a hint lighter. Maybe that's blood loss, maybe optimism. He stands satisfied. Rest, he instructs. No excitement, no baths for 2 days. Remember that caldarium off limits. And if fever returns, send for me immediately. Or a priest. You can't tell if that's a joke. As he leaves, you recline, letting your stomach debate the beetle wine cocktail. Outside, a market crier advertises fresh oysters, another Roman love that occasionally killed. You close your eyes, imagining oysters laced with lead glaze. Delicious doom. Hours drift. The lead sweet syrup settles oddly warmly in your gut. The lettuce burbles politely. The centipede powder. Well, you try not to think about it. Jokes run distraction duty. Joke 3 pops up. If the medicine doesn't kill me, the flavor will file a formal complaint. You breathe slow and steady. The faint sting of scarification reminds you of the medicus's careful hand, surprisingly gentle for a man who carries leeches as casual accessories. A breeze sneaks through the wooden shutter, carrying orchard smells from beyond the city dust, olives, distant sheep dung. You feel the day tipping toward evening shadows, lengthening on plaster walls. Your body, battered but alive, hums with cautious hope. Somewhere beneath layers of superstition, poison, and prayer, something is working. Or maybe your humors are simply exhausted, calling a truce. You'll take it either way. You drift again, half asleep, half listening to life outside, sandals scraping stone, a woman laughing, a fountain's hiss. Rome carries on relentless and indifferent, while you lie cocooned in linen and rose oil, hoping the next knock isn't death's discreet follow-up. For tonight at least, the medicus's wild pharmacy has bought you time, time to heal, time to ponder, time to plan your first forbidden fig once this nightmare ends. You wake in the early hours with a throat like scorched linen and a pulse that hums behind your eyes. Someone's tending the brazier. Its scent is sharp and medicinal, a mix of rosemary and charcoal. The medicus isn't here, but his apprentice is a sleepy-eyed boy, no older than 14, nose stained with ink sleeves, damp with who knows what. He's muttering to himself, holding a folded cloth over a steaming bowl. "Time to sweat it out," he mumbles, clearly quoting orders. He places the bowl beneath your cot and drapes a heavy wool blanket over your frame, sealing in the steam. It curls upward, earthy and hot, stifling at first, then oddly soothing. Roman doctors loved inducing sweat. They believed it expelled corrupted humors, especially the slippery phlegm that seemed to multiply overnight in the chests of sick men. Mainstream fact, in ancient Rome, fevers were often treated with sudacio sweating therapies, using steam baths, heated sand, or blankets soaked in warm vinegar. Today you'd call it something between a sauna and a slow roast. You start to sweat immediately, trickles running down your temples and ribs. Your skin flushes, and you feel the fever rising up, like a protest you've decided to ignore. The apprentice squints at you. "Do you want the beetle drink again?" he asks, hopeful. You decline with vigor. He looks mildly disappointed. Clearly, he's been practicing heroic dosages when the medicus isn't watching. The boy instead offers you a lump of fig resin soaked in diluted wine. supposed to soothe the throat. You chew slowly, tasting tree bark and raisins while he wraps your wrists in cold cloths. Roman doctors loved these little counterbalancing rituals. If your core overheated, cool the extremities. If your stomach raged, treat the temples. One scholar calls this their push-pull approach to healing. Another insists it was mostly guesswork dressed up in incense. Historians still argue whether this balancing method had any measurable success or if it just gave both doctor and patient something to do until nature decided the outcome. You breathe in the resin-rich air. The room seems softer now. The fever presses less urgently. Maybe you're improving, or maybe the body, once pushed past a certain limit, enters a weird kind of truce. Like a dog too tired to bark. The apprentice shifts beside you, rearranging tools in a shallow basket. You spot something shiny, a scalpel flat and leaf-shaped. He sees your look and grins. "We use it for cutting carbuncles," he says too cheerfully. "Or draining ear boils, or spleens. I'm learning." That's comforting. He notices your raised brow and adds, "Only when the medicus says so. I'm not allowed spleens yet." You nod approvingly, probably for the best. Joke 1. He actually smiles. Later, the boy crushes dried rose petals and barley into a coarse paste, mixing it with goat milk and a few drops of myrrh. The mixture smells like the world's saddest bakery. He pats it onto a cloth and applies it to your chest. "Pulmones need calming," he says. That's where anger hides. Ah, yes, Roman medical philosophy, emotions stored in organs. The lungs held wrath, the liver housed courage, the heart contained thought. You once heard a dinner guest say he'd been drinking to nourish the brain, and by that he meant wine poured directly into his chest. Joke 2. You glance toward your shelf. There's a small votive figure there now, left by someone earlier. A terracotta man with a lumpy chest and tiny hands pressed in prayer. Romans often left anatomical offerings at temples' arms, eyes, even plaster wombs, hoping the gods would fix the matching body part. You wonder whether anyone's ever offered up a plaster spleen. Joke 3. You can't stop now. Sleep comes again in sweaty bursts. Between dreams, you drift into the sounds of the house. The creak of roof timbers, the clatter of amphorae being moved in the kitchen, the occasional off-key hum of the apprentice as he stirs something with an oversized reed. When the medicus returns near dusk, he finds you pink and bleary, marinating in your own steam. He nods. Good. Very good. Your skin glows like a roast hare. We're nearly out of danger. That might be the worst compliment you've ever received. Still, the pain has dulled. Your gut is no longer staging a theatrical production, and your brain feels marginally less soup-like. The medicus draws a short bronze blade from a pouch and gently peels the rose barley poultice from your chest. He sniffs it, then nods sagely. Much of the anger is gone. He's probably not joking. Tomorrow we begin massage with warmed oil, he continues. You'll like that. Olive infused with thyme and crushed lupine seeds. Mainstream fact, Roman massage was more than pampering, it was medicine. Rich or poor, if you were a patient and could afford it, some kind of manual therapy came standard. They believed it helped realign bones, calm nerves, and circulate humors. Is there a treatment, you ask, that doesn't involve bugs boiling or barley? He grins. Yes. Leeching. You retract the question. He leaves with a warning, no bread crusts, no figs, still no bats. You wonder how figs got on this guy's bad side. As evening falls again, the apprentice tucks a fresh linen cloth around your feet and leaves a dried lavender bundle near your pillow. To calm the spleen, he says. He clearly loves the spleen. The brazier flickers lower now, The house is quiet. You feel the strange peace that comes when suffering pauses, if not ends entirely. Your body aches in new ways, but your mind no longer flinches at every twitch. That's something. Outside, a donkey brays. Somewhere, someone drops a pot. You lie still staring at the beams overhead, grateful for tiny comforts. No Beatles tonight. No fig ban. No spleen lectures. Your humors, once a riot, seem to be negotiating. You close your eyes, imagining your lungs and liver seated at a marble table passing olive branches and toasting with diluted wine. Tomorrow they might riot again. But for now, peace. Night drifts toward dawn, and with it comes the medicus's next bright idea. He arrives not with leeches or beetles, but with a decree you need incubatio temple sleep. Evidently, your humors have behaved well enough to advance to the deluxe spiritual package. Before you can object, the apprentice bundles your cloak around your shoulders, slips sandals onto your still tender feet, and ushers you into a hired litter that smells of frankincense and slightly used goat. The litter sways through pre-dawn streets. Lamp-bearers shuffle ahead, muttering about early starts. You peer through the curtains, roam, half-asleep bakers stoking ovens, a lone drunk still serenading the moon. Your stomach flips, not from illness this time, but from the uneven rhythm of 4 tired slaves carrying you toward the Aventine slope, where the temple of Asclepius waits, lanterns glowing like embers against marble. Inside the precinct, the air shifts cooler, resinous, heavy with herb smoke. Pilgrims lie on mats under colonnades, each hoping the god of healing will drop by their dreams with a prescription more effective than beetle dust. Mainstream fact, these incubation rituals were common. Seekers would sleep within sacred enclosures, record their dreams, and priests interpreted them as divine diagnoses. Think overnight clinic, minus the monitors, plus a few sacred snakes. A priestess in teal greets you, eyes kind but businesslike. She notes your pallor, your limp, and the faint rose barley scent still clinging to your skin. The god favors perseverance, she murmurs. Translation, don't whine. She leads you past a shallow pool where non-venomous serpents glide lazily. Quirky tidbit, they're considered Asclepius's helpers, said to lick wounds clean or whisper remedies. You silently hope they're more hygienic than the communal sponge sticks. Your sleeping pallet is simple straw, but the surroundings feel grand frescoes of miraculous recoveries. Blind men seeing lame men dancing, a woman presenting a jar of expelled kidney stones like trophies. You notice one scene of a patient receiving figs. Of course, even the gods tease you now. A priest arrives with a small tablet. Describe your ailment, he says, stylus poised. You offer the edited highlights, gut rebellion fevers, centipede courage trials. He nods gravely, then writes a brief petition to Asclepius, rolling it and tucking it beneath your pillow. Dreams speak plainly, if invited, he assures. Historians still argue whether temple cures were psychosomatic successes or carefully staged theatrics. But either way, many left feeling better, and sometimes that's enough. They dim the lamps. The room settles into a symphony of soft coughs, whispered prayers, and the occasional hiss of a restless snake. You lie still, watching smoke curl upward in lazy spirals and drift. Sleep comes fragmented, a courtyard paved with leaks. A giant bronze lancet splitting like lightning, a snake coiling around your waist, whispering less lead, more lettuce. Somewhere, Galen chuckles, scribbling notes. You startle awake at dawn's pale edge. A priest bends over you, slate in hand. What did you see? He asks. You recount the cryptic lettuce snake message. He nods unsurprised and pens an interpretation. Increase cool, moist foods. Avoid heavy metals. Apply serpent oil salve. You resist noting that avoiding lead is easier said than done when the plumbing is half the problem, but you're too groggy for sarcasm. They escort you to a side chamber where an attendant rubs your abdomen with warm olive oil, infused with, of course, serpent fat. Joke 1 slips out. At least it's not crocodile dung sunscreen. She snorts, nearly drops the vial, divulges that some visitors do request reptile lotions for skin glow. Fashion never sleeps. Post-massage, you're guided to a small garden to sip goat milk whey flavored with thyme. It's tart, but your throat welcomes the softness. Sunlight filters through cypress boughs, dappling the path with gold. You take a shaky breath. The air feels strangely cleaner here, or maybe you've just grown used to vinegar vapor and barley broth. Back near the serpent pool, pilgrims trade dream stories. One claims the god appeared as a surgeon, handing her a glittering knife to excise grief. Another swears she rode a dolphin upstream and woke cured of migraines. You nod politely. Joke 2 hums in your head. My dream handed me a salad. Miracles come in all dressings. Midday approaches. A priestess marks your pulse slower, steadier. She smiles. The god approves. One more night, and you may return home. Relief and dread share a handshake. The temple comforts you, but your own bed calls despite the draft and mouse choir. That afternoon, you stroll slowly through the portico, leaning on a cane provided by the temple. Marble inscriptions line the walls, thanks from healed soldiers, mothers, merchants. Some offer models of limbs, organs, even tiny bronze spleens. Joke 3 writes itself a should have brought one to keep the apprentice happy. You notice a heated debate near the altar, 2 scholars arguing whether dreams heal by divine action or by reordering internal vapors of the mind. Their voices rise, citing Hippocrates, Aristotle, and local gossip. Historians still argue the same temple incubation as placebo psychiatric therapy or genuine miracle. You shuffle past content not to choose sides. Breathing without cramps is miracle enough. Evening falls again. Lamps flicker and smoke of laurel and myrrh thickens. This time before sleep, a priest ties a thin wool band around your forehead, inscribed with minuscule Greek prayers. To guard against restless visions, she explains. You thank her. Anything that keeps beetles out of your dreams is fine. Night deepens. Through half-lidded eyes, you watch a snake glide across the floor scales, catching lamplight like ripples on water. It pauses by your palate, flicks its tongue, then slides on. You feel oddly blessed. Maybe tomorrow you'll hug a snake and risk a headline, "Patient cured by unsolicited reptile cuddle." The humors inside you feel less riotous now, more like a tired council negotiating deadlines. The stomach still grumbles, but gently. Your skin is cooler, your thoughts clearer. Perhaps it's the diet, perhaps the oil, perhaps the simple luxury of uninterrupted rest in a quiet sanctuary. Whatever the cause, you're grateful. You drift toward sleep again, buoyed by jasmine-scented wind wafting from the gardens. Somewhere distant, the city roars its ordinary chaos, traders shouting hammers, clanging, orators declaiming. Here, only the soft heartbeat of a temple and your own slower pulse. For the first time since sickness struck you, think not about surviving the next hour, but about what you'll do once you're well. Fresh bread that doesn't taste like lead. A cautious sip of garum, yes, you'll risk it. Maybe even a fig before sunset, just to spite your cautious medicus. With that rebellious thought, your eyelids close. The god's chamber grows dim, and the serpents tuck themselves into the shadows. Healing whatever its recipe continues in silence. Morning arrives, not as a jolt, but as a warmth, sunlight threading through columns, lighting up your straw palette like gold leaf on a scribe's manuscript. You open your eyes to the soft shuffle of sandals and the clink of bronze bowls. The temple is already humming with quiet activity priests, collecting dream tablets, pilgrims stretching limbs stiff from marble floors, one woman weeping with gratitude because her headache vanished overnight. You stretch cautiously. No cramps, no fire in your belly. You sit up slowly like a skeptical tortoise and test your feet. Still sore, but your legs hold. A soft cheer inside your chest. A priest notices. "The god favors you," he says with a gentle nod. "Time to begin your analepsis." You blink. That's temple speak for recovery phase. Basically, you're being graduated. Sort of. Don't celebrate yet. They take you to the purification baths. Warm water laced with herbs, lavender rue, pennyroyal, coaxes the stiffness from your joints. The steam fogs the marble room, and you find yourself humming just faintly the tune of a street musician from weeks ago. It's the first tune your body's remembered in days. You're handed fresh linen. You still look like a half-starved stork in sandals, but cleaner, smoother. There's even some color in your face that isn't beetroot purple. The temple healer nods in approval and hands you a small sack of dried herbs. For home teas. Boil once daily. Do not mix with wine. Joke one whispers in your mind. Then, what's the point? This is where things get interesting. Your recovery will now be monitored by a neighborhood iatros, a lower-level physician, sort of a cross between a general practitioner and a nosy uncle. He's affordable, usually educated, and available. If Galen is ancient Rome's Mayo Clinic, this guy is the local walk-in. The iatros arrives mid-morning, a portly man with ink-stained fingers and a tunic that's seen better decades. He greets you with genuine warmth and no unnecessary bowing, which is oddly comforting. He asks about your sleep, your digestion, your bowel schedule. You answer all of it because at this point, modesty died back with the beetle poultice. Mainstream historical fact, many Roman physicians trained in Alexandria or Pergamon, reading Hippocratic texts, learning anatomy from animal dissection and battlefield experience. The iatros is no Galen, but he's read enough to know what's dangerous and what's dramatic. He inspects your pupils, listens to your chest with the back of his hand, and nods thoughtfully. Still heat in the liver, but less fire in the bowels. You fight the urge to high-five him. Eat soft bread, boiled lentils. No raw figs, of course. Walk daily, but avoid running. And sleep with a cool cloth on your forehead. You agree to everything partly out of gratitude, partly because it's nice being told what to do without getting doused in vinegar. He pulls from his satchel a small wax tablet. These are notes from your temple dream. I'll keep them in your file. You didn't realize you had a file. He also presents a dried snake scale wrapped in linen. For protection. Quirky tidbit, some Roman patients carried healing tokens, including animal parts blessed in temples. It's like ancient aromatherapy meets Pokemon collectibles. He glances at your walls. "Your air is good," he mutters, poking the shutters. "Open these at dawn." Sun purges bad humors. Historians still argue whether this sun theory stemmed from real observation or just poetic instinct, but it's better than living in mold. He tells you to boil barley with mint and chew fennel seeds afterward. Helps gas, he adds bluntly. You can't decide if you're offended or thankful. Probably both. Joke 2 floats. When the doctor hands you a fart solution, you've really made progress. Over the next few days, you follow his instructions. You brew the teas, eat the lentils, do the walking. Your feet start remembering how cobblestones feel. You hear the gossip at the public fountain again, grain prices, gladiator scandals, someone's neighbor who caught a fever from a cursed amulet. Rome always gives you background noise. Neighbors begin to notice you're vertical again. One old woman brings you mulled wine with so many spices, it's practically a stew. The Iatros frowns, but lets you sip. Just don't mix it with the snake scale, he says. On day 3, your appetite returns, like a lion through a reed tent. You crave roasted meats, cheesy pastries, even garum. Especially garum. But your Iatros insists, introduce only one flavor per day. You feel like a baby testing out solid food. Today's trial, boiled squash. It tastes like sadness, but sits well. One evening, you have enough energy to climb the hill and watch the sun drop behind the forum's columns. The marble glows like fire. You wrap your cloak tighter and breathe in that strange Roman perfume smoke, sweat spice, and sewage. Somehow, it smells like home. You remember suddenly that you once thought you might die. That strange ache in your ribs, the chills that made your teeth dance, the moment you hallucinated Galen arm wrestling a centaur. Now it's memory hazy and ridiculous. The next day you return to the temple for one final offering, a small wooden model of your liver carved by a neighbor's son. It's crude, slightly lopsided, and you're deeply proud of it. The priest receives it solemnly. The god accepts your thanks. As you walk out slower but taller, another priest murmurs, "Your name will be recorded." You imagine it not as a statue or a fresco, but maybe a line on a tablet in the back room. Marcus Fever's dream of lettuce snake recovered. Could be worse. Back at home, you clean your own chamber with vinegar light, a fresh lamp, and place the snake scale on your windowsill, just in case. Joke 3. I got sick, met a god, befriended a snake, and learned to appreciate fennel. Thanks, Rome. You sleep that night without fever or fear. Just the whisper of leaves, the rhythm of a city that never fully rests, and the warm, curious presence of your own steady breath. You wake to the chorus of crows cawing from the rooftops and the faint clatter of water wheels turning in the Tiber below. Your body feels lighter, less like a battered amphora, and more like a vessel ready to be filled again. You're no longer a patient, but a man who survived Rome's brutal dance with illness, and yet something whispers that recovery is only a beginning. The Iatros drops by with a parchment scroll filled with scribbles and recommendations. You must not grow complacent. Health is a balance, a dance with the gods and the elements. He gestures broadly, as if explaining why your leg muscles matter more than your sandals. You nod, willing to learn. The city's noises return to you, merchants hawking honey cakes, children chasing hoops, and the distant clang of blacksmiths shaping iron. It's a melody you had forgotten in the fever's haze. You take a slow walk through the narrow alleys, feeling the sun warm your back, tasting the dusty sweetness of ripe figs sold by a vendor wrapped in indigo cloth. Mainstream historical fact: Romans believed fresh air and gentle exercise were key to preventing illness, a practice echoing Hippocrates' old wisdom. You pause beside a fountain decorated with carved dolphins, watching water spill into a stone basin where pigeons drink. Nearby, a beggar with a missing tooth smiles at you and offers a crust of bread. You take it, sharing a brief nod of solidarity. The social fabric here is thin but strong. You recall a strange rumor heard at the baths. Some believed that chanting certain lullabies or reciting sacred verses could ward off the evil eye and keep illness at bay. Quirky tidbit: Romans sometimes used music and poetry as a form of folk medicine, blending art with superstition in a dance of hope. You smile, imagining an ancient playlist of protective tunes. Historians still argue whether these traditions genuinely affected health or simply comforted the mind. After all, hope is a powerful medicine in itself. As you wander, you encounter a group of women grinding grain with heavy stone querns. Their hands move in rhythm, faces lined with toil, but glowing with determination. You marvel at their resilience, so different from the sterile clinics of the future, yet somehow equally vital. Returning home, you prepare a modest meal: boiled lentils spiced with cumin, a piece of hard cheese, and fresh olives pressed with salt. The flavors are humble but grounding. You savor each bite, feeling your strength returning bite by bite like a slow sunrise. Night draws close again, the city settling into a hushed lullaby of flickering oil lamps and distant laughter. You light a small lamp, placing it beside your bed, and reach for your wooden liver carving, turning it over thoughtfully. Your mind drifts to the larger picture, how the rich bathed in warm waters scented with rose petals, while the poor scraped by on coarse bread and bitter herbs. You remember the stark social divides that shaped not only health, but the very chances of survival. You lie back feeling the slow, steady beat of your heart, the gentle swell of your chest, rising and falling. The aches are gone, replaced by a calm awareness of living fully despite the fragility of life. You close your eyes, knowing tomorrow will bring its own challenges, but also its own small joys. Joke 3 whispers once more in the quiet. If only Romans had invented bedtime stories for grown-ups, maybe we'd all sleep a little easier. You smile in the dark and surrender to sleep, carrying with you the lessons of healing hope and history's gentle embrace. Morning's pale light filters softly through the lattice window, dust motes dancing lazily in the beams. You awake with the lingering scent of chamomile still faint on your breath, a reminder of last night's herbal tea. Outside, the city is already stirring, merchants setting up stalls, children scampering barefoot on cobblestones, and the distant clang of a bronze gong marking the opening of the forum. It's a fresh day, and your mind turns once more to the strange and varied medical practices you've heard whispered about in the crowded streets and shadowed corners. You recall the apothecary's cramped shop near the Subura, where rows of jars brimming with dried herbs, crushed minerals, and oddities like powdered mummy and powdered pearls fill the shelves. The air there is thick with a mixture of lavender, frankincense, and something faintly metallic. Mainstream fact: Roman physicians often relied on herbal remedies, some effective like willow bark for pain relief, others more superstitious, blending tradition with nascent science. As you wander through the busy market, your eyes catch an old woman hawking curious little bottles labeled with unfamiliar names. She offers a vial of theriac, a complex concoction said to cure everything from snake bites to plague. Fringe tidbit: theriac was a legendary Roman panacea, a mysterious brew concocted from dozens of ingredients, including viper flesh, opium, and myrrh, rumored to hold magical powers despite dubious actual efficacy. You pause to watch a group of physicians gathered in the courtyard of the Aesculapian temple. Their robes dyed in rich saffron and indigo, debating heatedly over a patient's symptoms. Historians still argue whether Roman medical knowledge was truly advanced for its time, or more a blend of guesswork, prayer, and trial and error. Your thoughts turn to the public baths, those grand communal centers of hygiene and socializing. You picture the steam rising from the Hippocaust-heated pools, men and women moving through rooms scented with oils and flowers. Bathing was as much a spiritual and social ritual as a hygienic one, believed to cleanse both body and soul. Yet some scholars suggest the crowded baths may have sometimes spread disease rather than preventing it. Nearby, a young mother cradles her sick child, whispering prayers, while an herbalist gently rubs a balm made from crushed rose petals and honey onto the child's chest. You marvel at the mix of hope, ritual, and practical knowledge that wove through Roman healing. You hear laughter and song floating from a nearby tavern, where patrons share tales and drink watered wine. It strikes you how laughter itself was considered part of the healing process, a medicine for the mind as much as herbs were for the body. You think about the role of religion and superstition in medicine charms, amulets, and offerings to gods like Aesculapius, god of healing. These rituals coexisted with treatments providing comfort and a sense of control in a world often harsh and unpredictable. As the day wears on, you find yourself reflecting on the delicate balance of life in Rome, the tension between science and faith, between knowledge and myth. Despite the many limitations, Romans laid foundations that centuries later would evolve into modern medicine. You finish your day with a walk along the aqueducts, watching the clear water spill into fountains that bring life to the city. The thought occurs to you these feats of engineering were as vital to health as any physician's skill. You return home grateful for your own fragile health and the strange, sometimes magical world of Roman medicine that kept so many alive in an age without antibiotics or x-rays. The city's evening hush settles softly like a velvet cloak around your shoulders as twilight deepens and you sink once more into the familiar comfort of your modest domus. The faint glow of an oil lamp casts gentle flickers on the rough walls, dancing shadows that mimic the restless heartbeat of the ancient city outside. You cradle a simple wooden cup filled with watered wine, its taste bitter but oddly reassuring, a small reminder of the day's winding journey through Rome's strange and sometimes contradictory world of healing. You think back over the many faces and places that have marked your path, the gruff farmers tending olive groves, the apothecaries with their pungent jars, the learned physicians in saffron robes, the bathers in steam-filled halls, and the countless common folk relying on charms and whispered prayers. It all blends into a mosaic of survival faith and slow discovery. Mainstream fact: though many Roman treatments seem primitive now, their doctors laid important groundwork for understanding anatomy, hygiene, and herbal medicine that would echo through the ages. Yet, amid this pragmatic care, you chuckle softly at some of the more bizarre customs. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen or the elaborate potions made from snake flesh and mummy powder? Fringe tidbit: some ancient remedies were as much about psychological comfort and tradition as they were about actual cure, reminding us how medicine has always been part science, part storytelling. The night deepens and your thoughts drift toward the role of the gods and rituals in health. The incense offerings, the healing dreams in Aesculapius's temples, the protective amulets worn by children and warriors alike. Historians still argue whether these spiritual practices genuinely aided recovery or mainly offered hope in a precarious world. You run a hand over your worn cloak, the fabric soft from years of wear, and consider the fragility of life in this sprawling empire. Where diseases spread swiftly, accidents are common, and many never see their 60th birthday. The laughter in taverns and the soothing warmth of baths might have been as crucial to well-being as the best physician's touch. A soft breeze drifts through your open window, carrying the distant murmur of the Tiber and the faint scent of jasmine from a neighbor's garden. It's a quiet moment, peaceful, reflective. You realize that medicine in Rome was never just about bodies, but about a whole way of living, believing, and enduring. You settle deeper into your chair eyes, growing heavy mind wandering between the tangible and the mysterious, the known and the unknowable. You feel the steady pulse of the ancient city alive and eternal, just as the stories of healing and hope will live on. Tonight you sleep, knowing that despite all its quirks and limits, Roman medicine was a testament to human resilience, an imperfect but heartfelt attempt to tame the uncertainties of life. And tomorrow you will wake to face another day in the grand, chaotic heart of Rome. The night now fully enfolds you, the soft flicker of the lamp dimming as your thoughts grow slow and deep. Imagine the gentle warmth of those Roman baths, steam curling like mist over still waters, the quiet murmur of voices mingling with the splash of cool fountains. Hear the distant songs of tavern laughter winding down, and the subtle rhythm of footsteps fading into the silence. It is in these moments wrapped in calm and quiet that the ancient world feels closest its struggles, its hopes, and its tender attempts at healing. Let the complexities of their remedies and rituals drift away, like leaves on a lazy river, settling softly into the folds of history. You do not need to carry their worries now. Instead, breathe in the slow, steady pulse of human endurance stretching through time. Rest easy knowing that every whispered prayer, every healing touch, and every shared laugh was a small light against the darkness. As your eyelids grow heavy, picture the stars over Rome's ancient rooftops, shining with a soft, golden glow. The city sleeps, and so can you, safe, comforted, and cradled by the long, gentle story of human care and courage. Sleep well, traveler. Tomorrow holds new stories, but for now, the night is yours.